Well, speaking of action, our theme this week is energizing agriculture for the future. And our plenary kickoff speaker today promises to set the right pace. It is my great honor to introduce Beth Ford, President and CEO of Land O'Lakes Incorporated. Land O'Lakes is a Fortune 200 food production and agribusiness company that is also a nearly 100-year-old farmer-owned cooperative. Beth's 34-year career spans 6 industries at 7 companies. Since joining Land O'Lakes in 2011, she has held a variety of roles, leading the farmer to fork business offerings. Today, she is a passionate advocate on behalf of farmers and rural America with the goal of connecting people, particularly in urban areas, to the farmers and rural communities who grow their food. A native of Sioux City, Iowa, Beth holds a bachelor's degree from Iowa State University and a master's degree in business from Columbia University Business School. She also sits on the board of directors for the Business Roundtable and the Fortune 150 company called PACCAR. I looked that up. That's Pacific Car and Foundry Company. So good for Beth. And she's also involved with numerous other industry, nonprofit, and university boards as well. Beth has been recognized by Fortune as one of the world's 50 greatest leaders and most powerful women, and was named to Fast Company's most productive people and best leaders lists, among other honors. She was also featured in the 60 Minutes segment entitled The Farmer's Advocate during the fall of 2019. So Beth, welcome to the annual meeting of the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's really a treat to be here today. I wish we were there in person. I think we were supposed to be there in the Dakotas, and I was looking forward to that.
I know, as were we all. But let's just get started here, and thank you for being here. You have such an impressive background, and you're leading on so many issues that are critical to rural America. And we're very pleased to welcome you and appreciate you taking this time today to be with NASDA. Land O'Lakes has been a longtime partner and sponsor of NASDA, and indeed we thank you for that, so thank you. But at this point in time, why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit more about Land O'Lakes?
Well, thank you. First of all, we have appreciated the partnership with NASDA and your leadership, so thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. Folks, of course, know Land O'Lakes. I always say this when I'm speaking, everybody knows our butter. It started in 1921 by upper Midwest dairy farmers trying to get power in the channel and get their sweet cream butter into the population centers in the East. So they formed a marketing cooperative, and that was successful. And so then they formed a supply cooperative. And that was animal nutrition items. Now today we own Purina. We have Winfield Technologies. We have agronomists, and we use technology with growers and through our local retail network. Right there on the farm. And we touch, say, 10,000 communities, half the harvested acres in America, 25% of the farmers in our federated system. So while everybody is familiar with our butter business, and right now apparently everybody's baking, everybody might not know that we also own Purina. And by the way, now everybody has a backyard flock. That's a thing. Those are going off the shelf pretty quickly. And then our Winfield Technology business. We also have Truterra. It's a tech platform and a business that works on sustainable production. And in fact, many of your colleagues here on this call, we meet with to talk about the ways that we can enable sustainable production in their states and deal with water quality issues, other types of things. And then, of course, we also have an NGO. We work around the world with our Venture 37 team, working with smallholder farmers in different parts of the, of Africa and elsewhere, and are partnered with the Gates Foundation. So the platform is pretty broad. It is, as you noted, it's still a cooperative. We love that cooperative structure, the intimacy of it, but it's also a Fortune 200 company, about a $15 billion business.
Yeah, well, absolutely impressive on the scope, depth, and breadth of what you're leading there. So that's amazing. Yeah, we all know Land O'Lakes, but do we really know Land O'Lakes? So thanks for sharing that. So the past few months have been especially challenging as the nation has responded to COVID-19. We've seen almost every facet of our lives turned upside down. How's the operating environment been for Land O'Lakes?
Well, it's choppy times, to say the least. I mean, for everybody. The first thing that you do when you're in my role and something like this is occurring the first thing you do is protect the enterprise and protect your employees. So the first thing you do is you look at the financials, you look at your liquidity, you call the bankers, you look at your CFO, have them run multiple models. What happens if this is a long-term downturn? And do we have the kind of liquidity we need? And of course, that's what we did. And we're in a very strong position. We're fortunate because we had been working our balance sheet for a while. And at the same time, the biggest and the most primary issue for us has been our members, our farmers, and our team, the staff. So we did the thing that I think is absolutely critical, working in partnership with many of you who are in on this call or on this Zoom. We made sure that we were changing our processes and policies. We used enhanced pay for the first few months as folks were still working and operating our plants. We have hundreds of locations, hundreds of manufacturing plants and distribution centers. They're still going to work. We need to make sure we've got a primary focus on them and their safety. Trying to listen to them. We put up a hotline. We're receiving thousands and thousands of calls from our staff and from others to say, this is my concern, or I may have been exposed, or what do I do about childcare, or what do I do about my children? You know, I'm trying to do work. And then we tried to make sure we continued to keep everybody calm. I say in these times, calm is contagious. Don't jerk the wheel on the car when we're in a snowstorm. Stay in your lane. And because if you jerk the wheel, you're going into the ditch, and we don't want to do that. And so we've been really, really out there focused on our team, keeping them enabled and engaged. All of us have been working remotely. My team at headquarters, we have a couple thousand in our headquarters, has been working from home. At our plants, we've reset the process flows, and at the same time made sure that the break areas, for instance, didn't have overlap for different groups. We did a variety of things, but a primary focus with our members and our team. At the same time, we all know this, and you know this in your role. One of the most important and critical issues is policy issues to protect the farmer in these times. And so we, with our government affairs team, working in DC and at different state government, with initiatives, tried to make sure that the policies were supportive to get the grower or the producer to the other side of this disruption. So, you know, a long way around telling you that even though you're saying you're focused on the business of the business, and of course I am, the business wouldn't be anything without the people and without the members, and they have to be our primary focus, and that's what we're targeting.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's cyclical, and it comes back to the farmers and your employees and keeping workers safe.
Right.
And I think shared value with all of our NASDA members in their state departments of ag. So thank you for sharing that. That was great. So let's talk a little bit about leadership, since we're right at that point and you're leading us into this. I listened to a recent interview you had a few weeks ago, and you shared that you're reading the book Leadership in Turbulent Times. So as a leader, how do you lead through uncertain times as we face today? What are the secrets that Beth has?
Well, you know, I was saying this to somebody, I think I always thought, well, you know, I'm paying attention to the team. I always pay attention to the team. I always pay attention to the members. But I think in times like this, you realize maybe you thought you were, but now you really need to show up. And there's an intimacy to the model. So here I am. I'm actually in my office at headquarters right now for this meeting. But I have a similar office in my home. And I've got my kids there. You know, I have 3 teenagers. Well, now 2, because I just got my daughter, our oldest, dropped off to college.
Congrats.
There's an intimacy to it. You know, so what happens when you're leading in this moment is people are able to see you as a full person now. When I'm here and I'm the CEO, I'm that person. But when you're in your home and you're doing calls with your team, and you have your 15-year-old son, you know, doing a, you know, low crawl into your office because he wants his technology, or, you know, you're like, no, hey, you don't have, or have this for breakfast or something like that. They're seeing you as a full person. And I think that there's a benefit to that, because you go back to how you're leading, you show up in a different way, a full way. as that full person. And I think we found that to be really helpful. Our team has never been more engaged. Our engagement scores would show that the business is performing well. We're actually having a very strong year because we're leaning into the things that are growing. What, the butter business, everybody's baking at home, right? Our animal nutrition business, everybody's got a backyard flock. Who knew? Our farmers are farming. And so doing that, and at the same time, this level of engagement, this calm, this thankfulness for what it is we're doing. We're trying to feed the world. We're trying to work through this issue. It is a joy and it is a privilege. At the same time, what we're trying to do is hit the areas you started this conversation with, which is reminding people of why rural America needs investment. What is critical to the farmer? What issues must be resolved? And now we see it full on, don't we? We see the need for technology when schools are shutting down and having to work with this virtual environment. We're seeing the lack of healthcare access in rural communities, especially. And now, guess what? Where's a lot of the case surge? It's in the upper Midwest or in rural areas. And now we're going to see this this concern. And again, I thank you for the partnership of NASDA and others on the access for technology and for the access of healthcare. We're leaning into our partnerships. We put together a partnership with the Mayo Clinic, with the Cleveland Clinic, with others, and with Microsoft, which we made an announcement on, to try to provide access to free Wi-Fi and also access to telemedicine during this time. So when you say, how do you lead? Well, what I hope you do is you put yourself aside and you focus on your team and your members and the communities in which they're doing business. And you realize how critically important your efforts are in partnership to resolve or to protect the folks who are part of your constituencies.
Those are very wise words, and I really appreciate the perspective of the thankfulness we have for being full people, holistic people at this time. That's the way agriculture people are anyways, I would assert, but it is important that we do that ourselves, and then that extends to our team, not. So before we go to technology, let me ask this question around people. As a nation, we're struggling with issues right now around diversity, equity, and inclusion. You've used your voice to elevate these issues and to push for changes at all levels, whether it's in the boardroom, on the farm, or on the national stage. How are you working with the business community or the ag community to address these issues?
Well, first of all, I understand you are partnering and really leaning into this issue on diversity as well, and I think it's so critically important. We want all voices, don't we? We're stronger as a nation, we're stronger as an industry if we have more folks engaged in our business and in understanding the importance of what we do as an ag community and why rural communities are so critically important. How are we doing it? Well, after we had the George Floyd murder here, we, as part of the business community, and here in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, there are probably 17 Fortune 500s headquartered here. And all of the CEOs signed a commitment that we would continue to make sure our staff is not only just protected, but invested in, that we will make sure that we have equitable opportunity for all, and we'll invest in our communities. I also sit on the Business Roundtable board. That would be, Doug McMillan from Walmart, or Jamie Dimon from Citigroup, others, Mary Barra, where we are as well working on equity issues and these disparate outcome challenges that we have as a nation. And how are we leaning in? Within the four walls of the company, I say, I want you to know that you are protected, you're safe, that this is a place that you can thrive, you can be your authentic self, you can be your best self, because we know that's going to lead to the best performance, and you can have all sorts of opportunity. Agriculture has tremendous opportunity to build a career. And at the same time, want to know that you leave and you're a part of a community. And as part of the community, we're also going to make investments in ensuring that there's opportunity or stability, stable operating environments to do so. There's no one magic answer. We've had listening sessions. It's painful. I'm going to be honest. It is incredibly painful. You and I, we don't know the journey of what this is. I don't know what it's like to fear. We had here in Minnesota, with like a CEO or CFO of I won't name the company. He's African American. He's been stopped 15 times on his way to work. Now, why is that?
Yeah.
Now, you and I don't go through that journey.
Nope.
I can give you any number of stories. And what I say is important is we listen. We listen. We must bring others along. We must get folks engagement in addressing some of these both economic disparity issues, racial disparity issues, opportunities for women, opportunities for women. We have to do that. It is better. We are stronger as an ag community when we do that. We are stronger in terms of opportunity and getting more people engaged. And so, yes, I do push on this particular topic quite a bit because I think that there are a lot of people who wouldn't understand how exciting this industry is and how open and wonderful this is to have a meaningful career. And we need to get all voices to make sure that we can make change.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your leadership perspective there and what you're doing. NASDA members will be discussing this week our commitment to diversity, inclusion, and racial equity. And we're pleased to do that because I truly believe as you, we're stronger as an ag community. It is indeed about all of us and all people. And so we are first and foremost going to listen and learn, Beth. So thank you. I'm glad you're doing it as well. And we'll follow your lead.
No, but well, you guys are leader, all of you. And I want to say again, I thank all of you on this call. You have been such tremendous partners during this unbelievably disrupted time, and to keep things working, to keep the food supply moving, and then to deal with this particular issue that we all know is present. I think it just shows such strength.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, let's pivot now to, you mentioned access to technology. So Land O'Lakes, of course, has been a thought leader on a range of issues from sustainability to the vitality of our rural communities across America. Recently, NASDA joined the American Connection Project Broadband, which is a coalition of more than 100 major companies and trade associations being led by you and Land O'Lakes to push for better broadband infrastructure. Tell us about the project and why Land O'Lakes chose to lead on this effort at this time.
Well, I took over as CEO 2 years ago. I spent a lot of time in the country. It was a great recommendation from my board. I had been out in the country quite a bit, but hey, really get out and see and connect with our local retail network. We got a reverse ownership model. So I was out and I saw, I grew up in Iowa. I saw really some of the challenges in rural communities, and then spending a lot of time with our farmer members. And we all know farmers, many farmers, especially mid-sized small farmers, have been going through a very difficult time over the last number of years in terms of their finances. And what was obvious to me is that there were so many issues: healthcare access, a local hospital shutting down, a shortage of 40,000 doctors in rural communities, educational outcomes lag those in urban and suburban areas, job creation lags those in urban and suburban areas. I can go through the litany of lack of investment in roads and what I came to, and what my team came to at that point, was to say, we cannot solve all of it. That's not our issue, but we need a stable operating environment for a stable, vibrant food supply, and for our members to have a chance for growth. And with that, what we know is technology is an enabler. We are a differentiated, insight-driven business. Technology has been an area of focus for us. We have big data. We have satellite technology. We have data and analytics. So we have data, you name it, we have it. And so what we decided was we needed technology enablement in communities. Now, we had started talking about this before the pandemic. I met with Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and we had been talking about a partnership about use of ag tools. They have a product called FarmBeats. And at the same time, we use all of the Microsoft suite of technology, their Azure platform. And we started with that, but I said, my observation is that agriculture it's an ecosystem. It's not just about whether you get the right answer on the farm, and we need data insights to make sure that increases, and same thing for sustainable production. But at the same time, we need the communities to have investment. We need technology there so that the schools, the hospitals, the job, the businesses can thrive. And he said, we are completely with you. With that, we started this this partnership with Microsoft, but we had at the same time with COVID noted that it was likely that we were going to see more COVID cases in the Midwest. So we sent out a note to all of 50 governors. I made personal calls to say, we need you to make changes to some of the regulatory, I guess, processes that are in your state that would allow for prescriptions to be written without a physical visit, for telemedicine appointments to be reimbursed at the same rate as a regular in-person visit so that we can sustain doctors. We asked for a number of things. We got such great support. We partnered with the Mayo. So you say this American Connection Project, what is it? Well, there was an urgency during the start of COVID because we could see what was going to happen. We're always better if we're partnered, right? We're always better when it's not just one voice in the wilderness shouting.
Yes.
All of the people that we have, all of the companies that we have, well, the organizations and the leaders like you, see the opportunity to make change. I'm so excited on the telemedicine side. The Mayo told us that they had more telemedicine visits in one day than they had all of last year. This is a sustainable model that we know will help rural communities. We know that. Mm-hmm. We know that same thing for education. Now, sadly, over a third of the students in these rural communities are going to lack access to broadband and technology. Thus, are opening up our free Wi-Fi in many of our locations so that you can come and finish your work, at least have access. This American Connection Project takes all of those other companies, and we keep adding more because more want to be part of it. And it's not just everybody in agriculture. It's Microsoft. It's Tractor Supply. I mean, name a number of companies that are saying, no, we want to be part of that solution as well. And when we get more businesses, more people engaged as partners to solve this problem, we have just so much more opportunity to make change. And that's what this is about. This is about driving for a policy change, funding of $80 to $150 billion. It is about closing this gap. We know that this could be an accelerant for the areas that I talked about, but also for job creation and for the economy. There's an estimate, I think, in agriculture, it's worth $20 to $23 billion if we close that technology gap. And so it's about an economic and a kind of a life kind of investment for these communities.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an outstanding description of the project, and NASDA is very proud to be a partner and being.
Thank you so much for your input, and anybody else who's on the phone who's on the Zoom who would want to participate, we would really encourage that participation. Some of it is going to be lobbying. Some of it is about making sure that this is front and center to different officials, including the speaker and the majority leader and the administration.
Yeah, no, we just appreciate your prescient understanding that agriculture needs this. There is a rural-urban opportunity gap. We're focused on it in our platform on resilience for rural America. Rural broadband is a key aspect of that because our members care about that and they know the impact it can have on telehealth, education, but also precision agriculture, frankly. So it's about almost close to keeping climate resiliency if you got to keep combines going. So it's really an amazing project. You mentioned that partnerships are critical, and they're so critical to the work of the state departments of ag. Here in this unprecedented time during the pandemic, there have been new partnerships between government and private sector and between state governments and federal governments. So how do we continue to enhance those new partnerships and those flexibilities that are driving solutions now? How do we make sure that's a best practice? We're going to keep those partnerships going.
I was thinking about this, like, why is it that we haven't, this has been an area of focus before. So it's not like, oh, new news, there's a shortage, right? And I keep saying I was literally giving a speech in the middle of, say, Indiana. I was under a tent in a cornfield, right? And I was talking about this fact that you see these kids happen to go to like some Dairy Queen parking lot to get technology access. And I was like, what's that? And I thought to myself, you know, farmers, folks in rural communities, I don't want to say they expect it to be hard, but it's not unusual that it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they figure it out. I admire them so, you know, they're like, I'm not a victim, I'm going to figure it out. So they're wiring something like with the old, you know, rabbit ear things on the TV set, and they're getting their coverage. Instead of saying, wait a minute, it's okay, we need to ask for partnership to solve this issue, help to solve this issue. Now, right now, everybody's focused on it. Mm-hmm. Because everybody is working remotely, or many people are working remotely. People had concern for the food supply. I don't know how many interviews saying the food supply is strong, everything is safe, it's good. But the partnerships, we can't let this go. The question I always ask the team is, what did we learn? What have we learned right now that we need to take to the future? And one of them would be this, the accelerant of technology to address many issues in agriculture or in these communities that this moment has provided. And we can't leave, you know, I always get concerned we're going to get through the election cycle and suddenly rural America isn't the area of focus anymore. Our farmers aren't the focus anymore, right? Until the next 3 or 4 years. And we cannot have that. It leaves I say this is an American issue. This is a national security issue. Food security is a national security issue. We need to think of it that way. We must demand this investment because it makes us weaker as a nation. It makes us weaker as a nation. So this partnership, how do we keep on it? We have to keep on it, and we need everybody here to continue to have this as an area of focus. We must have a safe, resilient food supply. We cannot do that without the utilization of technology and the appropriate investment. And we need to reach over to, you know, partners that you didn't even know were interested. You know, one of the good partners that I've had with Business Roundtable is actually Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan. You say, well, what does he care about this? Well, he does care about this. He sees this largely as well as a national security or as a security and economic issue, and wants to be helpful in making this happen. And we all need to think that way. And if we do that, I do think we have such power and momentum against what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, very well said. I think we could keep chatting forever, but we have a Zoom room of several hundred people here. So at this point in time, we need to open it up for questions. So all of you know we have a Q&A box. You can raise your hand there, or you can speak out verbally. We're trying to give priority to NASDA commissioners, secretaries, and directors. But with that, Amanda, do we have a question for Beth now?
No questions just yet, still monitoring.
Can I wanted to make sure I pulled up my sheet because we've been doing so many different things with many of you, whether, the commissioners or secretaries, so I know I think it was sometime March or April, we spoke with you, Secretary Ross in California, working on the climate reduction goals. And so that partnership, I think, has been so fruitful and helpful in Minnesota. Working with Commissioner Peterson, through Truterra and our sustainability efforts, and working on water quality certification. That's been terrific. In North Dakota, working with you, Secretary Goering, on the dairy issue, keeping the dairy industry vibrant in Pennsylvania, collaborating with Secretary Redding, and on a host of issues. And I, in fact, spoke with the governor there and wrote a op-ed on that, broadband access, sustainability in Vermont. We're working on investment in our facilities and expanding job access for dairy production in the state. And I use these as examples really to say, because I've also met with different secretaries, many of you in Wisconsin and Iowa, name the state. what we want is to partner with you. Let us help with our tools, with our access, and with our partnership with our members and our farmers and others in the federated system to address issues of importance to your state. I thank you so much for your partnership during this disrupted time. You're one of the reasons I think the food supply has been so secure and safe during this time. It's been very difficult, and I know it's because of your voice on what the needs are for the farmers and for the food supply. So thank you. And coupled with that, on all of these issues, soil health, water quality, climate, job creation, you name it, please feel free to work with my team and me. We would be more than happy and excited to work with you on issues of importance to your state if you're not already partnered. And for those of you who aren't yet involved in the American Connection Project, I would again encourage a partnership with us as we have some good traction against this push. Teddy McKelly, for instance, our Chief Technology Officer, is leading the Rural Broadband Commission under the FCC to focus on technology and access in rural communities and better mapping, as we all know that's needed.
I'm sure everyone in the room is going to want to take you up on this, so your inbox is going to fill up. But we did have a question. Amanda, let's go ahead with that.
Yes, we have a question from Commissioner Tom Peterson.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Glenn and Beth, and really appreciate your comments today on a couple of things on the work of partnerships. As you mentioned, our water quality certification, you know, without Land O'Lakes like stepping up and really partnering, the program in Minnesota has taken off where we're almost to 1,000 farmers and 600,000 acres, and we hope to get to 1 million acres on that. But what I kind of wanted to ask was, you know, we talked a little bit about COVID, but I wonder too, as a company, you know, and not knowing, you know, when the end is, you know, and the future for our food, you know, supply and our ag businesses, just how you look at that and plan for something that we may or may not have an end for. And you know, as we look at, you know, are trying to provide some, you know, stability or hope to our farmers, kind of an open-ended question, but I just think it's really, you know, a tough situation we're in with our food supply right now. Just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you know, such a, you know, yes, 100% from what you're saying. Well, two things on how you're dealing with it and then what we're talking to our members about. First of all, on how we're dealing with it as a team and as a business, as I said, we're trying to focus on the areas that are growing. Retail is growing. Of course, everybody's eating at home. Food service is not. Nobody's eating out, or certainly much less. I always think paying attention to the team first, and then when we have areas of potential growth or good business, I keep saying, geez, we're in the alley in a knife fight, and you know, when we get some good victory, then we got to put the victory in our pocket, and then we move to the next, and we move to the next, and we move to the next. So it feels very tactical, but it is the way we have to think of it, because nobody knows. I don't know how many schools are going to open up and how many are going to shut down. I don't know how many businesses are going to open up and what's going to shut down. I don't know any of these. But what I do know is we have to have good resilience. In terms of the farmers, what we're doing, especially for instance for the dairy producers, is our member services team is out directly with our dairy members, talking to them about resilience, risk management, what things they can do to make sure that their P&L is more resilient. We try to give them as much information of the forward market as we possibly can. We're working with the U.S. Department of Agriculture on what programs might be beneficial for farmers and also for consumers. So it some way feels somewhat tactical at this moment, because nobody, you know, think of it, 250 of the S&P 500 pulled guidance for the year. Nobody has visibility to what the back half is going to be. What I know is week to week, what we need to do is focus on our things that are most important for our business, most important for our members, most important for our team, and then you know, try to build some level of resilience, you know, for the back half.
That's great. Thank you. Amanda, do we have another question?
We have many questions, more than we have time for today, but I have a written question from Kansas Secretary of Agriculture, Mike Beam, and then if we have time, another verbal question from Russell Redding, Pennsylvania. The question from Mike Beam is, what's your analysis of ag's future in international trade, especially with China? How is Land O'Lakes positioning itself in this arena?
Well, what was interesting is Premier Xi has put out food security as a major issue for China. I don't know if everybody's been reading about how he's put out this idea that we've got to look at consumption as citizens of China, and we've got to look at food waste. So we know this is a primary issue. We're seeing soybean shipments just really increase, corn shipments really increase. And so the real question is whether they're going to continue to use the food supply and trade as a lever or as a something to push back against the administration. Regardless of who wins in this election at the presidential level, I would say both parties, at least my read on it, really want to continue to push back on China for some of their behaviors. When it comes to technology theft and those types of areas. So I would suspect, we all know trade is critically important to the sector. I don't know that it will be the same level of energy against, the food supply. I do know this is a primary issue for China and elsewhere, and we're going to have to see where that unfolds. But I would say that I wouldn't expect it to change with any administrative change or administration change, just because China is really in the headlights for everybody. I don't know that that tariffs in general are going to be the way to go. The dollar has weakened. I think it's at the lowest level of the last 2 years. I think that's positive for exports in general, and I think that would be a positive for agriculture.
Great. I think, Amanda, you said Secretary Redding has a question from Pennsylvania.
Yes, Secretary Redding, I'm meeting you now.
Hey, Dr. Glenn, good to see you. Thank you. Beth, thanks for sharing today. And I'm always sort of energized every time I hear you, every time you write, you speak, for a lot of reasons. I think it's you see these intersections of agriculture in our larger society, number one. But I also appreciate that the cooperative business structure is sort of, it's intriguing to me. We were founded with a lot of cooperatives. Land O'Lakes has that history. Do you see a resurgence in the cooperative business model when we look at the needs of agriculture here in the future? Where do cooperatives fit as a model? Thank you.
Well, sadly, I'm seeing, and thank you for the question. Sadly, we see consolidation in co-ops, but I'm gonna put it past just farmer-owned cooperatives or just agriculture. What's interesting is, again, I do sit on the Business Roundtable Board as well, and they went out with a statement of purpose for businesses, and it talked about focusing on your employees, focusing on their communities, and focusing on shareholders versus the previous view of corporations, giant corporations, which is really only about the shareholders. And there was really kind of some pushback from some people, like, oh, you guys just stick to your knitting. It's really about the return for the investor. Or you're just really saying this because businesses are being pressured so much by activists, etc. But I thought to myself, well, I am more than happy to sign this statement of purpose, because that's what the cooperative model does and always has done. It is focused on the employee, it's focused on the community, it's focused on, yes, returns and the shareholders and the members. And I think as a CEO of a business, if I talk to other CEOs and they're not even in cooperatives, whether we call it a cooperative structure or we think about the values that a cooperative imply, I would say that you're going to see even more attention about the responsibility of certainly CEOs, but responsibility of businesses to think more broadly than just the bottom line, have to think more about different constituencies. So do I think the cooperative model is strong? I do. I love the model. I think that there's tremendous strength and intimacy to it. I like it quite a bit, and I've worked in big public and private companies. And at the same time, I come back to what is the real purpose of the cooperative and what values does that imply? And I'd say that you're going to hear more that would seem to you to align with what a cooperative, whether they are or not.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Cooperative is a great word, is it not? It's the development of our partnerships and our agricultural community and our rural communities. So I think with that, Beth, I'm going to give you the last word, but I think we're going to have to close out. This has been an amazing opportunity to talk with you and for you to share some of your wisdom. We very much appreciate having you at the NASDA annual meeting. I'll give you the last word.
Well, thank you for having me. Again, I want to say thank you to all of you, because I can, I happen to list a few things that we're doing with a few of you, but I can tell you that not only are we more than willing to partner with others, but we already are. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your leadership during this disrupted time. The food supply has never been stronger. It is because of your leadership. And so I thank you for that. The only other thing I would say, as we finish today, is the work that you're doing. We started with the diversity issues. I love the platform. I read through some of the things that you're doing before I got onto the call. And I think we need to think bigger, more broadly, about the power of agriculture and the power of rural communities. And we need to shout about it. We need not be shy about it. And I'm encouraged every time I speak to these issues in urban areas. People say, we just didn't know, and how can we help? And we want to be partnered. We need to step back and remind ourselves that the things that we do every day, that you do every day, is about our national security. It is about not an urban or rural issue. It is about an American issue. And I would wish for us to step back to that, and then we make progress. We make progress when we partner to find solutions, not when we're combative with each other. And so I think that everything I saw on your agenda and the work that you're doing really says that. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your leadership and partnership.
Well, thank you so much. On that note, we'll say goodbye, but we'll also say hello. We'll be in touch.
Good. I'll look forward to it.
Thanks so much, Beth.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah.
You too.
Okay. I think that was an amazing dialogue, and I want to thank everybody for being engaged. I would urge you to take her up on her challenges. Landa Lakes is an organization that's moving